All right. So, what have we completed so far? So, in the previous session, we learned what is data model, why data model, how to build a data model, what is fact table, what is dimension table, what are the few of the criterias to build before we build the connections, right? So we learned, okay, dimension tables cannot have duplicates. There must be a common key between dimension table and fact table, and then the filter direction is always from dimension table to fact table. So we use dimension table to filter the fact table. Okay, so let us access the data model. So where do we click to access the data model? Manage data model, right? Under Power Pivot, go to manage to access the data model. So let me open the data model. All right, let's go to the diagram view. Okay, so we created our connections, and there's just one table missing, right? Which is the dim date table. So we need to build a connection from date table to all the fact tables. Now, this is very, very important. See, whether you are working in any domain, be it finance, be it operations, procurement, sales analytics, any domain, you you have your transaction data, right? So you have your budget, forecast, your plan, your returns. So if you want to analyze the transactions or your your quantitative information based on a timeline, it could be a month, it could be a quarter, year, then it is very important that you connect all your transaction table to your date table, and you must create a date table and use that date table to connect all the transaction data. Now, suppose if I use the month from the sales table, if I use the month from the budget table, and let's say I want to analyze budget versus sales actual. So if I use the month from the budget table, then sales actual has no connection with that month. So sales actual will give me an incorrect result. So we should connect both budget and sales actual table to the common table, which is the date table here, right? So now how to connect this dim date table to all the transaction table, we should have the date key in our transaction table. And we learned that there must be a common um, key that we use to connect all the dimension table to the fact tables. Now in dim date table, what is that key? It is the date, right? The key must be non-repetitive. There should not be any duplicates. Then only it will work. And that key in a dimension table, which is non-repetitive, is called a primary key, right? And the same key or the same field, when it comes to a transaction table or a fact table, is called a foreign key. So in chart of accounts, this account is a primary key, and the same account in GL is called a foreign key. Similarly, in the product table, product ID is the primary key, which is the unique key, which is non-repetitive. And when it comes to sales returns or sales budget or sales actual, the product ID is the foreign key. Okay, so you should understand this. Now, we are connecting this primary key to the foreign key here. Now, to connect this date table to the GL table, all that we do is we just drag and drop like this. Now I'm getting an error. And what is this error? The relationship cannot be created because each column contains duplicate values. Ah, so now when you get this error message, that simply means your dimension table has duplicate values. And I told you then one of the rules before you establish a connection, that the dimension table cannot have the duplicate values. So what we should do? We should go back and check what are the duplicates values in the date table. So what we do, we just close here, and then we go to the Power Query, because in Power Query we can check the duplicate values, remember? So let us go back and check under Power Query. So I will open the Power Query, and then I will open the date table. So I'll double click on date table, click OK. So where do I check for the duplicate values? So to check the duplicate values, I go to Home tab, I check under Keep Rows, and then click on Keep Duplicates. So if I do that, Power Query will give me only the duplicate values. So now if you look at here, we have two dates, two rows with the same date, same year, all the values are same. So this is causing the problem. So what should I do? I should remove the duplicate value. So what I do, I will undo this step, because when I say keep duplicates, Power Query has removed all the other rows, which can lead to issues. So what I do, I just remove these steps. I'll select this, and then I'll say remove duplicates, and then I'll remove the duplicates. Now this action would have removed the duplicate values from the date table. Okay, so now we are done. All that we do is we just go and load that change, wait for Power Query to complete the change, and now we can go back to the manage data model. Go to diagram view. Now let us start connecting the GL and dim date. Now you see we could successfully create a connection between the dim date and GL date. Perfect. Okay. So let me quickly check. Is this clear so far? Is this clear? Perfect. Anyone has any questions? Great. Excellent. If you have any questions, please drop your question here. I will answer that. Okay. So let's continue. So what I'm going to do is, let me complete the connections from the between the date table and other table. So between the OPEX full year and the date table, I have the date field in the transactional table. Okay. So now let us, we created a connection. Let us double check and check if both the dates are same. Now there is a problem here. And what is the problem? If you look at the date table, we have a full date here. But in the OPEX full year table, we only have date and month. So this will not work, because this is not considered as a date. It should be exactly matching. Now what we should do is, we should change this OPEX full year table date column to a date format. Okay. So now let's do this. Let's go back. And that must be, there might be a problem in sales return, sales budget, sales actuals. So when we check and fix the OPEX full year, let us also check if there is an issue, if we have a proper date in sales return table, sales budget table, and sales actual table. Okay, that is what we are going to do. So let us again close here. Let us go back to the Power Query. Let's open the Power Query. Let's first check the OPEX full year. Now OPEX full year, we have 2024-01. This is basically the month and year. What we are missing is the date. So sometimes when you try to change this to a date format, Power Query will automatically change this to a date format. So now if you look at here, it is 1/1/2024, 1/2/2024. Now it is changed. All that I did was, I just changed the data type, and Power Query understood, okay, I am trying to change this to a date type. What is missing is the date. Okay, so Power Query, what Power Query did? Power Query added automatically 01 in front of the month, which is basically the day. And then Power Query successfully changed or converted that value to a date. So this is done. So now we can connect it. Similarly, let us check if sales return. How does it look for sales return? So sales return, we have a proper date, so we are good. Okay. If you look at the return date, it is a proper date format, and the data type is also date. So we are good. Now sales budget. So if you look at the sales budget, the problem here is that we don't have a date. So we cannot analyze the sales budget by month or by quarter or by year with this current uh, column. So what we should do is we should convert this to a date format. So how to convert this to a date format? So what we have is month, right? January to December. To convert this to a date format, we should add day and year. Day we can add 01. Year, this is a 2024 budget, so we can add 2024. So how do we add day and year to this month? So what I can do is I can go to transform, I can go to format, and then add prefix. So what should I add prefix? Prefix should be date, right? 01, which is the date. So I will say 01 and I will put a hyphen to separate the date and month. Now it says 01 hyphen 1. So we have date and month. Now similarly, I can add the suffix. So suffix is hyphen 2024. So now we have 1/1/2024. Now this is in a proper date format. Now what I should do? I should just change this to a date format. Now this looks all good. So this is how we have created a date column inside our budget table. So I hope it is clear what we just did. So let me complete this actuals also, and then I will come back to the chat screen, and then if there are any questions, I will answer. So order date, we have the order date here. We are going to connect to the order date. So we are all good. No changes required. Okay. So I hope it is clear what we just did. Um, okay. So I hope actually, yeah. So basically, Sundareshan, what we just did was the date table had a duplicate value. So I used Power Query to remove that duplicate. And after removing the duplicate, we were able to connect the date table to the transaction tables. Similarly, we started connecting all the date table to all the transaction tables. But some of the transaction tables had this issue, right? That proper date column was missing. So we just fixed that issue. So I hope, is it clear for everyone? So that's a good question. So if you have multiple years instead of 2024, 2022, see, if you have multiple years, definitely in your budget file, you will not just leave 1, 2, 3, right? As month. Definitely you will also have your year added. Otherwise, when you prepare your budget, you wouldn't know whether you are preparing this for which year. So the source data will be including the year. So you know this is for which year. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions, anyone? Otherwise, we will just move ahead with the other things that we want to discuss data model. So okay, all right. So no other questions. Good. Let's go back and load this. So with this, our data model is ready. So I'll just show you a few more things. So let's go back to the data model and complete the connections. Diagram view. So I'm going to go to date table and then connect this to sales return, which is the return date. And then I will also connect this to the sales budget. And then we'll also connect this to the order date. Okay, so now we completed our connections. Looks all good. Couple of things I want to highlight. Number one, if the connection, if you want to use the data model, the connection must be active. Meaning, if you double click on this connection, you will find on the top, on the bottom left, a checkbox to make this inactive. So if I remove the checkbox and click OK, what will happen? You see the dotted line here. Now, if it is a dotted line, then the connection will not work. So now let me show you that. So we have completed the connections, and then I will show you the active and inactive shortly. Now next is the design tab, and if you want to view all the connections, you can go to manage relationship, and this view will show you the all the connection that you have already created. So here you can find whether the connection is active or not. So this connection is not active. You can also see what is the table 1 we have used and what is the table 2 we have used, and then what is the filter direction. So filter direction, you see that the filter direction is towards the left, which is from the dimension table to the table 1, which is the fact table. So all these are fact tables here. All these are fact tables, and right side all these are dimension table. So the filter flow is from dimension table to the fact table. And you also see the cardinality, which is many to one or one to many, both are the same. Okay. Now, if you want to create a new relationship, instead of dragging and dropping, you can click create, and you can select the tables, and then you can create the relationship here. You just need to highlight the two rows, two columns which are common. You can also edit a relationship by mistake. Suppose you selected a wrong column, you can click on edit and then edit the relationship. And you can also delete a relationship. Okay. Now let's close this and let's build a data model. So now if I go back to this and I'm going to insert a pivot table. This time I will use the from data model. Click OK. Now I want to analyze what is my monthly sales budget versus sales actual. So what I do is I'll go to month, I'll search for month name, and then from the date table, okay, I'll pick the month name here. Okay, I'll pick the month name and I'll bring it to the rows. Don't select the month name from any other table like a sales table, budget table. The rows should always come from the common tables. So month here, I can also search for year, and I will search for a year, and then I'll bring it to the filters. Then I will go to the budget table. Here I have the sales budget, right? Sales budget is here. I'll bring the amount here. Now you see this. Now we are seeing the budget amount by monthly budget amount. And then I can also bring in from the actuals. Okay, sales actual is here. I'll bring in the sales plus GST, which is the actual. Now you see this. We have created very quickly budget versus actual. Okay, so sum of budget, sum of actual, it shows what is the budget and what is the actual for each month. And I'm going to filter this by 2024 because the actuals may contain multiple years. So now if you look at here, it shows what is our budgeted values and what is our actual values. Now the month name is not showing in the order because month name is a text. So it is sorted alphabetically. So how do I make sure that this is sorted in the order of month? So what I should do is I should again go back to the manage data model. Go to the data view this time. Go to your date table. Click on your month name. And then on the top, you will find this sort by column. Select sort by column. And I want to sort the month name by month number, which is month. So now what happens? This month name column will be sorted in the order of the month. So January will go to the top because January month is number 1. So now this will be sorted, and I will close this and it should fix issue. Now you see that it is in the order. So I see here the values. Perfect. Now what happens if I go back and do this? So in our diagram view, we have this product table. So I will make this product table active. Instead, what I do is the connection between the date table and the budget table, I will make it inactive. So here we have a connection between the date table and budget table. So this connection I will click and I will make this inactive and click OK. Now, if you go back to this one, you see that now the values have changed. You see this? It is showing the grand total for all the months because Power Pivot cannot assign or filter the month name for the sales amount, sales budget, because there is no connection, active connection between the date table and the budget table. So the filter is not happening. So if we go back and change this to active, now it should work. So let me close this. Now it is working perfectly. All right. So we covered, so far we learned, uh, why to use a date table, how to connect a date table to transaction table, how to build a date column. If the date column is missing, active versus inactive relationship. And remember one more thing: at any point there in Power Query, whether you are using Power BI or Excel, there can be only one active connection. So what if you want to use multiple active connections? For example, in your transaction date, you have an order date and invoice date. So then you need to handle that using DAX, okay, which is a formula language. Again, we are coming to that. So far we completed our data model. And there is one more topic I want to talk about, which is star schema. Star schema. This is the last topic that I want to cover, for the data model module. Okay. So far, any other questions? Are we all good? Clear so far? Fantastic. Okay. Good. I hope everyone is clear. Very good. Okay. Now let us understand what is a star schema. See, star schema, there are different types of schemas, and the popular ones are star schema, snowflake schema, galaxy schema, flat schema. There are different schemas, and these are all data modeling approaches. So the reason I'm covering this here is you might come across these terminologies and you might be wondering, okay, I learned a data model, but I never learned what is a star schema. So that is why I'm covering this. Simply speaking, star schema is you have a fact table, let's say sales table here, and then you have sales table is connected to product table, let's say customer table, branch table, maybe you have a salesperson table. So there is a connection from sales table to the product from customer, or the other way, from product to sales, from customer to sales, from branch to sales, salesperson to sales. Now, if there is one fact table in the middle, and it is surrounded by multiple dimension tables, it is called a star schema. Okay, so this is basically a star schema, one fact table in the middle and dimension table connected to the dimension tables. Now, what is snowflake schema? Snowflake schema is basically you have the sales here, you have your uh, dimension tables here, like your product, your customer, let's say your branch, your salesperson, these are here. But now let's say that in your customer table, you create a sub table for the customer location. You further optimize your customer table by creating a new customer table, meaning a subset of your customer table. Now, why should you do that? So, for example, let's say in your customer table, you have customer ID, customer name, and then you have your customer's mobile number, email ID. So we give all this information when we purchase a product, right? To the sales counter, we give all this information while registering or while billing, right? They ask for the mobile number, email ID, and all that. But then, in some cases, let's say you also have your address. Maybe it's a school, and they ask for our address, right? Parents' address. So address, they may ask, okay, which is your area, postal code, and let's say city, state, and so and so, right? For example, Amazon, they ask for they store all this information, right? Whenever we are purchasing any product. Now, what happens if there are 100 customers, or let's say 1 million customers, and this address is common for many customers? Then that means we are basically, it's a redundant, meaning we are storing duplicate values here. And that can add additional load to the data table. that can also cause the data retrieval slow. So what we do is we separate this table to a new table, and we store all the address area and everything there, and we give a code for that. Let's say location code. Let's say 123. And what we do is in the customer table, we use that as a foreign key to refer to that location code. And we will create a connection between these two tables. So the reason why we use Snowflake schema is only to further optimize this. Normally not used, but in a very complex data models where you have this problem, like you want to optimize it like millions of data, large number of tables, then you use the Snowflake schema. Again, it's a very complex. So mostly it will be Galaxy schema or Star schema. So this is Snowflake schema. It is just that we are further optimizing the one of the dimension tables. Finally, we have the Galaxy schema. So Galaxy schema is basically you have more than one fact tables, more than one fact tables connected to your dimension tables like products, branches, customers, salesperson. Now, to give you an example, let's say that you have a budget table, you have actual table, uh, you have orders table. So you have multiple transaction tables, fact tables that are connected to different dimension tables. So you connect your budget table to branches, product, budget to your salesperson budget to your customers, um, right, or whatever, right, dimension table you are using. Similarly, you are also connecting your actual tables. So here the difference is that there are multiple fact tables connected to the dimension table, but in star schema there is only one fact table connected to multiple tables. Okay, so I just wanted to share this so that you know, okay, what is this schema, and it's basically a data modeling approach. Okay, see, data modeling itself is a very broad concept. I mean, there are more to this. So, but we are talking from an Excel, or maybe when you learn Power BI also, you learn in this context only. But data modeling is, much beyond this. Meaning, in an organization, how do you build your entire architecture? So you decide, okay, what should be your conceptual model, you understand what should be your logical model, you understand what should be your physical model. In the conceptual model, you decide, okay, what should be your entities, what is the relationship, and then in the logical model, you understand, okay, what should be your primary key, what should be the foreign key, what should be the data type. In the physical model, you decide, okay, where do you want to store this data, the connection type, and all that. So it's a completely, it's a technical approach which the database administrators and the data architects works together, and they use the business rules, business logic, and they involve the business team to build the logic. But when we join an organization as a data analyst, financial analyst, we are not going to build any data model. What we are going to use is we extract the data from the existing tables and we build a model. Basically, it's a relationship among the tables inside the Power BI or inside Excel. That is what, as end users or the finance analysts and finance professionals, we do. All right. So I hope this is clear so far. Any questions? If it's all clear, let's move to the next topic, which is data analysis expression or DAX. So just give me clear, not clear questions in the chat box so I know you're following. Thank you, Siddiq. Yeah, Prakash. Yeah. So I hope, Ismail, yeah, clear. Okay. Yeah, Vincent. Okay. So anyway, we have the recordings. I hope you can catch up with the missing one, right? Okay. So now, but if you have any specific question, Vincent, let me know. Okay. Yeah. Uh, all right. So let's go. Now we are going to start the most exciting and most interesting part. And what is that? It is the DAX. DAX is data analysis expression. Now, what is DAX? Basically, DAX is a formula language. So in Excel, if you have used Excel, you have used sum if, count if function, lookup functions, right? You have used different functions in Excel. In Power BI and Excel BI, we cannot use the same Excel functions because we are dealing with the large amount of data, and we cannot do a column reference or a cell. We cannot do a cell reference. Meaning in Excel, let's say we have 1 2 3, and if I want to add all this, I will say sum to this. So it basically shows some G9 to G12. But in BI, you know that we might be dealing with millions of records. So you cannot really use column references. So in BI, we have a completely different language. In Power BI and Excel BI, it is called DAX. It's similar to Excel in terms of the structure, but it is completely different from Excel, except that a few basic functions look similar to Excel, or they are similar to Excel. But otherwise, the advanced functions are completely different. Now, the next thing I want to highlight is whether you learn Power BI or Excel BI. The difference between an expert and an average user in Power BI or Excel BI, it is only DAX. Because if you ask me, Power Query is not that difficult to learn. Data modeling, not that difficult to learn. Okay, there are some complexities, but not that difficult to learn. But where people struggle is the DAX, the formula language. And if you want to build functions, advanced functions, for example, in FP&A, you want to build your revenue analysis, your sales analytics. You want to compare your budget versus actual. You want to compare your trend analysis. You want to analyze your trend analysis. You want to analyze your P&L. You want to calculate your P&L metrics like EBITDA, net profit, and you want to understand why the revenue is dropping. Is it because of the price? Is it because of the volume? What is the impact because of the price drop? What is the impact because of the volume drop? What is the impact on the P&L because of the increase in OpEx? Is the OpEx staying flat to the revenue? Is there any increase in OpEx? Is there any decrease in OpEx? So what's been the trend of OpEx? What is OpEx versus monthly versus budget versus actual variance? And again, so you analyze your sales. Okay, which month has contributed to the highest sales? Which month has contributed to the lowest sales? Which product line is doing well? Which product line is not doing well? What is our cumulative running total? Meaning, what is my year over year variance sales? What is my cumulative total? So all these different calculations require good understanding and good grip over DAX. So, uh, so that is the importance of DAX, and let us learn the DAX from the basics, right? So, we are definitely going to build at least a couple of reports in this live training, and by end of it, you should be comfortable working with the DAX. It is just that you need to practice more. Now, first of all, the first question that we want to answer is why DAX? For example, I have created very quickly. I created my first analysis which shows monthly budget versus actual. So why do we need a DAX here? So what I did, all that I did was I just dragged and dropped the columns from the pivot table to here. And this is what we used to do in Excel also, right? We were not doing any calculation. We were just dragging and dropping the columns, amount columns to the value section. Now, why DAX? See, this is basically called implicit measures, meaning we are basically using the column values as measures. Now, what is the problem here is, suppose I send this to my manager, and the manager says, okay, this looks good. So we have a budget, we have the actual. Now tell me what is the variance between, can you add another column that shows the variance between budget and actual? Now, how do we do this? So to add a variance, we should build a calculation. How do we build that calculation? We need DAX. So we want to subtract the actual minus budget. Suppose the manager says, I want to know what is the percentage of variance. Then we should again use DAX. So without DAX, we cannot build calculations other than basic calculations like sum, average, count. This can be done. But beyond that, if you want to build calculations, you need DAX. Now, when it comes to DAX, there are different types of measures. There are different types of functions. So in Excel, I told you we have sum if, we have text functions, date functions, number functions, lookup functions, logical functions. Then we have sum if functions, right? There are different functions available. In DAX also, we have different functions. These functions are called the first set of functions, aggregation functions. Then we have iterative or iterative functions. We have logical functions. We have functions, filter functions. We have functions that we use to change the filter context. Okay, functions to change the filter context. We have table functions. So there are many different functions in DAX. And if you learn the functions that we use in this Excel automation module, you will be able to manage 70 to 80% of your uh, KPI calculations at your work. Okay, you don't need to learn more complex or advanced DAX. So we will be covering almost everything that is required for FP&A kind of roles, very advanced level calculations. Yeah, so we are going to learn that. Now, what is aggregation functions? Let us start. Okay, so before I go there, let me quickly check. Are we all good? You are with me so far? Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for confirming. Yeah. Okay. So what is aggregation functions? Okay, like I said, this is only the functions that you see a resemblance with Excel. Aggregation functions are functions like sum, average, min, max, count, distinct count, count blank, count rows. These are some of the aggregate functions. So meaning why we use these functions is to aggregate the column values, right? For example, you know what is a sum function does, what is an average function does. Oops. What is minimum? So sum is the total, right? The total of a column. Average is basically the total divided by number of instances. For example, if I have four values here, what is the sum here? Equal sum. In Excel, we use the sum, right? 100. This is basically sum. What is average? Average is the number of transactions here. Like how many are here? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 100 divided by 4, average is 25. What is minimum? Which is the minimum value in the list, which is 10. What is maximum? Maximum is the maximum value in this list. Count is basically the count of the values, right? Now, a count distinct. Count distinct is, let me check if it's available here. Yeah, what was that? I think it was, okay, let me come back to this. There was a way actually, we could use. Then what we have is count blank. So if there is a count blank, okay, we can use count blank. Okay, so let us do all this in in DAX. Okay, so let's say that how do I calculate the sum of sales? So we calculated the sum of sales here, sum of sales amount here. So we are going to do that using DAX. So to create your DAX calculation, you should go to Power Pivot, go to measures. So a measure is basically a calculation. So you click here, measure, create a new measure. Okay, then you will get this pop-up box. Now in the pop-up, you have your table. Now you can decide where you want to store this measure. So you have multiple tables here, right? So you can decide which table you want to use to store this measure. Second thing is, you can also create a new table that you can use to store this measure. Okay, so I will show you how to create a new table to store this measure. But for now, since we are calculating everything for the sales related, I will select sales actuals. Now we should give a measure name. Measure name is very, very important. You should follow some convention to create a measure name. For example, sales amount total. I can say sales amount total. I can say sales actual total. Now, this will, suppose if I want to reuse the measure, I should not be confused like, okay, what was the measure name I used for the sales actual? So I should be able to recall it. Especially when you work in our kind of reporting, you will be creating 100 plus measures, right? At the end of the reporting, so it's very important that you understand, you remember, okay, or you follow a certain convention to create the measure. So here I am saying this is a sales actual and I'm creating a total. So if I'm calculating average, I will use average here. Okay, so this is sales total. Now here it's very simple. You should start with a equal sign. Okay, now next is an aggregation function. It is sum. So open bracket. Now when you open bracket, DAX will ask you what is the column for which you want to calculate the sum. Okay, so now I can select the column. So here I want to calculate the sum of sales actual, sales plus GST. Okay, so I want to calculate the sum of this close bracket. After closing the bracket, I should check formula. So it says no formula, errors in the formula. Now now the final step is, see this measure that we create can be a number, percentage, text, anything, right? So you should tell DAX, okay, what is the formatting I should use? So I can use a general format or I can use a number format. Under number format, I can use decimal, whole number, percentage, scientific. Okay, or I can use a currency format or I can use a date format. So here what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a decimal format, two decimal, or I can remove the decimals completely here. Okay, and I can say this is a whole number. Okay, so now click OK. Now I am creating this. Now you see this, we created an actual measure here, 57402156. This is the value we created using the measure, which is the same value from the columns, right? Now let us create another measure for the budget. So if I go to the manage measure, I should be able to view the measures that I have just created. Okay, so I can either edit this measure or delete the measure here. So I create my next measure, which is sales actual only. Maybe I can use sales budget, and then I say sales budget total. Then I say sum, and I don't want to scroll through all these columns. Instead, I can start typing budget, and then it will display all the columns that contains the word budget. So sales budget, budget amount, this is the one. And then I click check formula, number. Let's use the whole number. Now this budget is not appearing here. So it is already created here. So I can go to my budget, sales budget. And then if you look at here under sales budget, this measure is showing here. So the measure that you created will show with an FX sign. So that means it's a measure. Okay. So if I click here, it will be added. So now look at this. It is the same measure that we created here, right? 5601800. It is the same one. Now I can create a variance. So the variance is very simple. So let's say that I will say sales. I can say sales variance. Now sales variance is difference between these two measures, right? So I can simply reuse the measure, whatever I have created. So I can say sales actual total. So when I say sales actual total, the one that is showing here, if you look at here, this one is the measure that we created, sales actual total, right? So you use this sales actual total, which is a measure. Now it is appearing inside the square bracket, sales actual total minus budget total. So here we have the sales budget total. Okay, so you can use one of this and then check formula, number, whole number. So now it shows the variance, sales variance, which is the difference between the sales actual and sales budget. So now if you look at here, in January, we actually we did above our budget, but in February we were under, right? Now what percentage? So for that, I want to divide the sales variance by the budget, right? So I'll go to new measure and then I'll create sales budget, sales variance percentage. So to divide, I can simply use this variance, sales variance divided by sales budget total. I can use this. But the problem is, if the sales variance or sales budget is missing, then I will get a division error, right? So to avoid that, I use the division function. So divide function. So I start with the divide. Divide wants three inputs. The first input is the numerator, second is denominator, and then alternate result. Here the numerator is basically the variance, comma. Denominator is always the budget because we will be comparing the variance with the base value only. So here we have the budget total, comma 0. 0 is if there is an error, what should be the result? So I say the result should be 0. And then I say check formula, select number, under decimal number, this should be a percentage because we are calculating the percentage of variance, and then click OK. Now you see that we got the percentage value here. Okay. So now do I want these three columns here, these two columns here, the columns that came from the pivot table columns? No. I can simply remove this. So now looks all good. See, even if I remove these three columns, the sales actual budget and variance, it will still show the variances. For example, if I just remove this, all the columns, nothing will happen to the percentages because percentages will always refer to the columns that we used during the creation of the measure, and even if you remove the other columns, the percentages will not be impacted. So now this is our first measure, right? This is our first set of this. So we used sum function to calculate the total. We also learned how to subtract and divide the measures, right? I hope so far clear. Yeah, Bhuvesh, thank you. That is a unique function. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything? Any questions at this point, or all clear? Excellent. I hope it's all clear. So let's move on. Yeah. Okay. Now we learned the sum function. The next is the average functions. So average function is nothing but the sum divided by the total number of transactions, right? The total number of transactions or records there. So if I want to calculate the average sales per transaction, I'll go to new measure and then I'll say sales average. So I will use the average function, average. So average sales. So this is average, and I should give the sales amount column, right? Sales plus GST. So this give me what is my average sales. The average sales, and then I use the number function, and I can use whole number or I can use decimal number. That's completely okay. So now this created the average per transaction. Now average, what is average per transaction? If you take the total of the sales divided by the number of records, number of rows in that file for January, then you will get 13,396 is the average value per row. That is average transaction price is 13,000. That is the average. Now similarly, I can calculate the minimum. So for each month, minimum sales minimum. So I'm saying following the same convention, starting with the sales, and I say sales minimum. I use min function and sales, and again select the column, not the measure. Okay, so all these functions we should be selecting the original column, sales actual plus GST, check formula, no errors, and then whole number, click OK. So now this will tell us in January month what was the minimum sale value. So it is 141. This was the minimum value for the month of January, right? Now what is the maximum sale that happened in the month of January? So we can say sales maximum, so which is max function, and then we can say GST, sales plus GST column, and this gives us what is the maximum amount of sales happened in each month. Okay, and I'm going to tell you one interesting concept after this, which you must understand, and we keep talking. I'll keep actually, talking about that concept in the next sessions as well. But it's a very, very important concept that you need to understand after this. Okay, sales maximum, and then I can count the sales. So I can say sales count. So which is basically a simple count. I can use sales GST, or I can say I can count the sales actual. Maybe I can count the sales actual product ID. or I can count the sales actual order ID. So whichever actually I'm using, I can use that. Okay, so if I use the count ID, count of order ID, it shows me what is the total number of orders there, right? So this is basically the sales count. So I know how many orders we received. Finally, we can use actually count blanks. So count blanks is, let's say that if you go to the sales table, let me open the sales table very quickly. Uh, so this is something that will be helpful if you work in AR, AP. So let me check that. Sales data, let's say January to March. So here, if you look at here, in the sales table, you have order date, and then which is basically, we can call it invoice date, okay? And then you also have the payment credited date. Suppose if there is a payment credited is showing blank, that means the payments have not been received, right? If it's a blank, that means the payment is not collected yet. So if we want to count the number of payments, what we can do is we can count the blanks there, right? Count the number of blanks in the payment received. So I'll come here, and then I'll say sales count unpaid invoices. So here I can say count blank. So count blank on the payment credited, right? So if there is a blank there, I'll be able to see the how many are pending, how many payments are pending. So if you look at here, nothing is pending, but in December, there are 821 transactions that is pending there. Okay, this is sales unpaid invoices. Now suppose I want to count the total number of products record. So let's say that total count of products. So that's basically a simple count. Let's say that's a simple count of sales product. If I go to sales actual and I'll count the sales product ID, I will get the number of products there. So it shows, okay, how many products are there, which is same as the value here, because here we are counting the order ID, here we are counting the product ID. But what if I want to know how many unique products were sold in each month? So there I'm going to calculate the count of unique products. Sales, unique product. Unique product is basically count, distinct count. Distinct count, I will say sales actual product ID. So now this will give us distinct count of products, meaning if we have 10 products and only 9 products are sold, it will show actually there are only 9 products, right? So I'll click OK. Now it shows, okay, in each month we are selling 50 products. There are 50 distinct product being sold. Okay, so there is no variance, there is no difference. Everything is, all the products are sold in all the months. All right, so what did we do? So we created our basic calculations, sum, average, min, max. We also calculated the division. We calculated user subtraction, and then we calculated average. We calculated count blank, then unique count. Okay, so we started using the basic DAX functions, aggregate functions so far. Okay, now it's already 7:57. In the next lesson, you are going to learn what is a filter context, and we'll also start learning the aggregate iterative functions. So let's learn the iterative functions, and then we start solving more problems using the iterative functions with the logic, iterative functions with the filter. So it's going to be an exciting session tomorrow. Okay, so let's stop here, and then please do practice. Okay, if any questions, let me stop sharing. So far, is this clear? How is it going so far? All clear? Any questions? Excellent. I'm so glad you are able to follow through. Very good. Please do practice. Source files all are there in our module, inside our module. Go to the live sessions, and just above the live sessions, it is there. All right. So I hope all of you have the Google form link. If you have any questions, please do submit a Google form, or just, you know, I have shared it in our WhatsApp group, right? Yeah. So I'll see you all tomorrow. It's going to be even more exciting from tomorrow. So I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, product file has GST percentage and GST amount in file. I will show you tomorrow how to separate the GST and the in the amount. Okay, and GST percentage is separate. We will see that tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Bhagat Singh, I will look into that. Okay, don't worry. I will help you to get that solved. Okay. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for joining today. Bye bye. Thank you.